Your friend asked you, well, how was your jury duty? What did you do? And what was the case about and why you made the decision? And it's very easy for you to be able to have an explanation. That shows that you have an understanding of what your duty was and you have an understanding of how you came about making your decision. Junk science, poor police work, inconsistent, and contrary explanations of the events in question, and a motive for this young girl to cry wolf and to protect her reputation and to protect the relationships that she has with others. With all of that, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to do justice and find Josh Sills not guilty.
Here with us, criminal defense attorney Joseph Tully. All right, Joseph, you heard that end of the defense closing argument say, we want you to find him not guilty. That's exactly what this jury did, but I didn't feel the closing arguments like I do in some cases. I felt like neither were super impassioned or compelling, but yet the jury did say not guilty. What are your thoughts about this verdict?
I thought the closing argument by the defense started off very, very good. It was very succinct, and it encapsulated perfectly the defense here in that, listen, somebody makes an accusation, and from that point forward, there's basically a rush to judgment. Nobody scrutinizes anything. Once a case is filed, somebody's treated basically in a protected status, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, but the scrutiny doesn't come until jury trial. So I thought that was a really important point to put forward. I was surprised that the verdict came out so quickly, but I think here is the inconsistencies in the statement as it relates to the evidence in the form of injury was key here to the jury.
Yeah, you know, we talked about the expert that came in, but at the end of the day, I said during her testimony, as good as it was, at the end of the day, this jury's going to look at the photos and make up their own mind as to whether they see anything, and I don't think there was a lot to see, unfortunately. But let me ask you this, Joseph. I'm not sure whether it was the lack of corroboration with her story and the matching up. And earlier, Marie Pereira said this reminds her of one of the accusations made by Amber Heard. And that it wasn't backed up by the pictures that she took. Very similar here. But I also think an important part of this case was the lack of investigation, or what was missed in the investigation, how they didn't do a very thorough one. They missed so much in terms of looking at the truck itself for signs of maybe some kind of struggle, getting video from the bar, taking the phones, going up and speaking to the guys who were involved. They never went and did that, not even to the defendant in this case. I think all those things, when put together with some of the issues with corroborating her story, I think that was just as important to me. What are your thoughts?
I would agree with you, and I would submit that this is actually more very common. It's sort of, you know, accusations are made, and if they're sensitive accusations, normally speaking, the investigation isn't two ways. They're not looking for really corroborating one side or like looking to see what happened. They're trying to say, are there accusations here? Is there enough probable cause for an arrest? And a case is put into action. So I think that looking at the evidence and looking at the accusations here, there could have been an argument that, hey, look, she might have exaggerated some points because she was nervous or because she wanted to get her verdict, but still, here's the baseline that we all can agree on. I think that would have been a great way for the prosecution to go. But when you have inconsistencies between what the accusations are and the evidence, I think the jury did the right thing. You can't distinguish between somebody's exaggerating, even though it happened, without giving up reasonable doubt that they're lying about everything.
Joseph makes a great point, and that has to do with the idea of how these investigations unfold. We often see, Judge, defense attorneys attack the investigation, saying they had a one-track mind and they were basically a lot of confirmation bias. And essentially, when these investigations take place, they're not looking for things to exonerate the person that's being accused. They're looking to corroborate the story of the victim. So, you know, it's a legitimate point.
Absolutely, and I do love your point that when the accusations don't match up with the evidence, there's reasonable doubt. I mean, I think that the jury got got it right. And that doesn't mean this did or didn't happen.
Exactly.
What it means is the evidence presented, I think there was reasonable doubt. So I understand why the jury got there. Joseph, I want to listen together, though, because this was unusual. I've never seen it done. I've never heard of it done. I think, Michael, you said you haven't either. No. But the judge allowed all of the attorneys and the bailiff and the defendant to address the jury. Let's listen again to what the defendant had to say.
When we look back on this case and we go over it in the years and stuff like that, and your service as jurors in this case, and you know, in a nutshell, have the elevator speech, or when your friend asks you, well, how was your jury duty? What did you do? And what was the case about and why you made the decision? And it's very easy for you to be able to have an explanation.
I'd like to say thank you for everything that you have done, for paying attention, doing your due diligence, and listening to the testimonies. Judge Patton, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done. I'd like to thank my family who have supported me from day one. I have done nothing wrong, and I'm glad that was proven today. So thank you again.
All right, Joseph, first of all, have you ever seen this opportunity given to everyone, including the defendant? Second of all, how did you feel about the defendant getting to speak to the jury?
I think it's within the discretion of a judge. I think I have done similar things, or similar things have happened in some of the jury trials that I've been in. I think if somebody's wrongfully accused, to have them be able to speak to the jury after the case is concluded, I think can bring some closure, and it can finally open that dialogue in more of a formal setting between somebody who's accused and doesn't testify. They get to kind of tell the jury, hey, look, thank you for your decision. And just having that connection, I think, is important.
I don't like it, Joseph. I don't like it, Judge. I don't like it at all. He got to say it was proven, I did nothing wrong, and that was proven. That's not what was proven in court. It was just proven that the state couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did something. And he got to say that in front of the family, the victim's family, and that's why I don't like it.
I think that's coming from your perspective as an expert and a lawyer. I think the person standing there found not guilty says, good, I just got my day in court. This proved I didn't do it. I think he believed that.
I think he does, but again, something happened in that truck, okay? And for him to get up and would not have to take the stand, but get to speak to the jury after the trial, it bothers me just a little bit. Again, fully within the discretion of the judge, but I personally don't like it.
Absolutely respect that. All right, Michael, what's up next?
All right, coming up next, ballistics experts fired up to 139 shots at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in a reenactment of the Parkland School massacre.
And the victim's family spoke after. We get to hear what they had to say on the other side of a short break. Stay tuned, Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, new revelations in the case of the accused Long Island serial killer. Will break down what we've learned about the suspect and the ongoing investigation. And on the docket, a four-time widower accused of murdering his wife and the man he allegedly paid to kill her.